You're listening to the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast with your host, Cameron Manning. We bring you the industry experts each episode who will help you man up on your real estate career. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast. I am your host, Cameron Manning. And again, we are bringing you those industry experts that honestly, you guys need to hear from if you guys are wanting to level up or man up on your real estate career. Today, I'm really excited. We've got somebody who I've actually been trying to get on this podcast for a couple of years, especially in the old rendition of the podcast. And we've got her lined up now. She is somebody who, in her early days investing, her and her husband bought over 100 residential properties in 3 years. So we're definitely going to dive in on that. And that's through using their joint venture strategy. They have been coaching and speaking about real estate investing all across Canada. And they've started, in my opinion, one of the largest real estate clubs on Facebook for investors. You guys are going to learn so much from this inspiring woman. Help me welcome Tiffany Young. Tiffany, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome, Cam. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. I mean, I know we talked a couple of years ago in Niagara Falls about getting you on the podcast, and things happened with the podcast, didn't pan out, but we're back now with the relaunch, and I'm super excited to have you here. And you and I have known each other for a number of years now through different investing platforms. But I know your story. Other people know your story, but not everyone. And that's what we want to do, is we want to share your story out there. And I think you are providing so much value to real estate investors out there in Canada. I think now's the time we got to spread that word. So thank you so much. What I want to do to get started, though, is I want to get to know you pre-real estate. Like, what actually drove you to get into real estate investing? Because, it's not something everyone just wakes up and says, I'm going to be a real estate investor. There's something that spurred it on. What was that moment? What were you doing before, and what led you into real estate?
So, my real estate story starts with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like so many others, where I, understood the concept of it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, when I read it, I was only 17 or 18. And so for me, there was a disconnect in believing that I could actually do it, because I felt my age and experience, etc., would hold me back. So I held myself back for a few years yet before getting into it. But what spurred, the further kind of story was just need. My husband was out working a carpet cleaning truck with chemicals on his feet all day long. And,
Oof.
it was just need. I did not want to continue to have the same problems that we had all along.
Right. And what led you into discovering real estate then? Because I know you read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, but once you guys finally made that decision, you're like, we need something new. What was the catalyst that propelled you? Especially, like I said, you bought 100 properties in 3 years. What was that catalyst that really forced you into it?
Well, a little deep for first question, but let me tell you, we ended up having, and some of you may have heard the story already, so I apologize in advance, but we ended up having a family that lived down in the US, and they had no health insurance. And so though we had been dabbling in real estate, and though we had been interested in it, and excuse me, we're taking some training and learning about it, what actually made us fly and go headstrong into it was the fact that we had a bit of a health scare down there, and health insurance, as is a major issue. And we were looking at, for about a week there, facing we may not have the money to do what we need to be able to do and pay for.
Yeah.
And that was the scariest thing in the whole wide world. And so from then on, I remember saying to myself, I will never, ever, ever, ever be in this position again. And so we changed things.
Love that. I mean, sometimes, I hear a lot of people talk about the why, and people always choose the why as to why they get into real estate. But sometimes it's that wall, when you're finally backed up against a wall, that you realize there's other ways to do things out there. And that's when things really propel you forward. And I think that's a strong wall. If you're in that position where you are trying to help and you don't know what to do, you search out the answers. Now, when you got started, again, we talked about it at the beginning, 100 residential properties in 3 years is an incredible feat. And I know you guys specialized with joint ventures. And I know that's what you do a lot of coaching, you do a lot of teaching on the joint venture aspect. So I want to understand how you learned about that system and started implementing it. What was your strategy behind that to be able to build such a large portfolio?
Well, I mean, we had heard about joint ventures, and basically someone else is going to give you the money, you're going to put in the work, and you're going to partner together on these properties. We knew we had the drive, we knew we had the desire and the abilities, and we knew we could figure out whatever needed to be figured out. But we didn't know like where to find these people, these supposed people that lived out there somewhere that were actually going to give me their money.
Yeah, these people are just sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars waiting to be put somewhere.
Supposedly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep,
I
yep.
heard that they existed, but I was like, all right, show me where these people are. So so that was kind of the drive behind like going down that path and figuring it out, and just asking all those questions and taking every seminar that we could and reading every book that we could, and just kind of saying like, okay, great, I understand the concept, I get the knowledge, I understand it cerebrally. Now I actually need to be able to put it into place. So what's my next step, my first step? And no one could tell us that first step. So we just had to kind of crawl around and figure it out ourselves. So once we did, we kind of systemized it and formatted it into something that's easy to follow.
Awesome. Take us through that first one then, like, because obviously, we always say in the industry, like your first one's always going to be your hardest because, you've got the butterflies, you don't really know what you're doing. Will these people actually like make a return? So take us through, what was the emotion? How did you guys structure that first one? That obviously, once you got that first one, that's when you start getting the ball rolling, right? So take us through all that process.
Okay, well, the first one was a brutal one, truthfully. I was in
I
tears
feel like
more
that's a
than
common thing. I mean, I know that was my first property too.
Yeah, totally. So for us, we didn't have the money to do anything on our own from the beginning. So my thought was, I really wanted to like spend the mistakes, use up my mistakes on my own money before using someone else's money. And so I wanted to find a way to do it myself. But it was 16 months into the progress of me like really delving into real estate, and we still hadn't been able to do anything because I was so determined to use my own money. Finally, I got over that hurdle in needing to make mistakes on my own money, and finally decided to use other people's money. So that was our first property, was actually a joint venture property.
Awesome. And so what was the type of property that you guys were targeting then? I mean, I know you're from Alberta, you're from Edmonton area. Did you guys focus on the Edmonton area? Like where did you guys start with your investing?
Yeah, so we followed Don Campbell when he
Mhm.
said, number one, Edmonton was the number one place at the time. So, we just found a cash flowing property. That was all that, we found a cash flowing property was our number one thing. We wanted some cash flow. We happened with this one to be able to negotiate a VTB, which we didn't even know what a VTB was. Really, we'd heard of it.
For those listening, VTB is a vendor take back mortgage. So definitely go and Google that, or reach out and let us know if you're interested in learning more for sure.
Yeah, and I know you even negotiated some of these VTBs for some of your clients.
Yep.
So, when we didn't know how to do it, it was it seemed like a big thing for us. But we had been able to negotiate basically that the sellers of this house would hold back a few $1,000s, so we didn't have to put quite as much money down. And so, so that was the property. We took it out to real estate events and started kind of touting it as, hey, we want to buy this property. We need a partner that has money. And my very first time touting it, I went out to Toronto, went up to the mic at this organization that used to let you pitch deals. And I said, and I was so nervous, and I had a property, and I'm looking down at my notes, and I said, I have a property that, is in the best place in Canada to invest. And the speaker and the host of the place cut me off and said, wow, probably not the best way to start when you're on the other side of the country in a totally different city.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, it was like, I was just like already shaking like a leaf, and that just totally threw me. Anyways, did my little 30-second pitch thing. Thought I flopped it, went back to my hotel that night, almost in tears, walking through the lobby. Checked my email in the lobby because at the time there was no, smartphones, and had an email, someone saying, hey, heard your thing tonight, kind of interested. And that made it all better. And they actually ended up being the ones that did eventually invest in it.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, yeah, I always find there's a little bit of a dichotomy when you're a West Coast or, prairie person going out to Toronto. They always feel, especially in Toronto, sorry, people from Toronto listening, but it's true. Everyone thinks that the world revolves around Toronto, right? And there's definitely some amazing opportunities in Toronto. We've had a lot of people from Toronto on this podcast. But yeah, no, it's definitely when you're going to another area and, we're hearing from the West Coast, that Edmonton at the time was, number one. They're probably being told something different. Toronto's always number one, right? So yeah, it's it's
Yeah.
interesting. But hey, at the end of the day though, the big thing is you went out and took action. I think that's what a lot of people are missing when it comes to real estate investing, especially when they don't have the capital, is the action part of it. And if you don't have the capital, you need to put yourself out there. You need to talk to
Yeah.
people, and you did just that. And from there you got that first property done, and then you started systemizing how you guys were doing it, and then started building this portfolio. Now it's been many years since then. You've got a great portfolio now, but you're also now starting to educate and teach people, not just on the joint ventures but real estate in general. I've seen you on many different stages. We've been at many different events together. So how
Mhm.
did that spur around where suddenly you're like, you know what, we have something here and we want to teach it?
I got asked that this morning on a call too, and it pretty much came from the fact that for a while there, for probably the better part of a year, I was spending so much time doing lunches and dinners, and just people saying, "Can I pick your brain? Can I take you for coffee?" And I was like, "Of course, I like to be a newbie. Of course, I'll help you." But it really became practically a part-time job for me. It was a lot of time,
Yep.
so I started taking on some coaching clients, but I could only do 3 a year, and that just wasn't enough. There's a waiting list. And anyways, we ended up fast forwarding into, I got some coaching on how to do group coaching without, because I felt that it was gonna like fail people. I wanted that one-on-one touch. Little did I know that the group and community around you is so powerful. It was way better than I could do on my own. So yeah, we just kind of decided, what, if we're going to help more people without giving up more of our time, we better learn how to do this in a systemized way.
Absolutely. And it goes back to that word that you said from the very beginning. You systemized your joint venture program. So now you're starting to systemize how you're handling people who have questions. And 100%, I totally understand that aspect where suddenly you start building some traction, and everyone, it's always, can I take you out for lunch? Can I pick your brain? And when you're a
Yeah.
busy person, you're running your real estate business, you're doing whatever else you're doing out there, plus you want to have a life, you
Yeah.
definitely have to find those ways that can leverage those opportunities where you can still provide the value if that's what people are wanting, but at the same time you get some of your life back. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So and I've
Well,
seen that. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I've seen that. So I've seen the growth from what you guys have been putting together, whether, you guys started with the Investor on Fire and started working with people. I know Corey had gotten his license at one point, and you guys were running a real estate team, and then you guys been on stage and growing. So there's been some exponential growth. But the key thing that you said as well is that you got a coach to help you with the coaching as well. So it just goes to show that, there's always opportunities to grow and expand in any kind of business. And I think that's one thing as well, a lot of people are scared of, is the cost of a coach. So maybe if you can kind of talk about that, like what do you think about coaching, and why is it important for people to be if they're going to be successful, why do they need coaching?
Well, I can get, again, this morning we had the same conversation. I can give you the example. It's kind of funny. um, there was this one couple that had asked us about our opinion on a certain place, and they were going to take our coaching and they didn't, and that was fine. And we still helped them, with our opinion and what they should do. And it was a great place, and yeah, it was great. However, we saw them a couple years later at an event, and we were just kind of catching up. And I said, "So did you buy that place?" "Oh yeah, we put $90,000 into a basement suite, blah, 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 blah. We did this and that." And I'm thinking to myself as I'm going, I'm like, is this the same property? Isn't this the property that, you had already? There was a suite in it already. And they're like, "Yeah, that's the one." I'm like, "In this road and this place and whatever." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah." And I'm like, "But you were grandfathered in with that." Because at the time, there was a grandfathering in process where they didn't have to do the second HVAC. They didn't have to do the second entrance. They didn't, all
Right.
that. And so they were like, there is. So anyways, eventually it came down to, if we had been able to, be involved on a weekly basis with them, hands-on coaching, we would have saved them. They would have been able to do a $30,000 renovation instead of a $60,000 renovation, and still been legal. So what do I think of coaching? I think that I could tell you a million stories like that from our clients, but I also have those stories, the things that the coaches have taught me,
Yeah.
that I've saved myself. So is it expensive? Yes. Has it always paid off? In my case, 100%, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, you definitely got to know what you're getting with the coaching, and you got to do your due diligence on the coach for sure. There are a lot of people who are out there who are offering coaching programs, and maybe they shouldn't be the right person offering it, right? But at the same
Yeah.
time, once you've done your due diligence and you realize that this coach is the legit person that's going to help you guys grow. Again, it might not be about the making the money, but hey, saving $60,000, what would it hurt the coaching program at the time for them be for them? What, a couple $1,000?
It probably would have been around 5-ish mark.
$5,000. So essentially their net would have been about $55,000 saved on that investment.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but that's nothing to sneeze at. That's huge. So
Yeah.
100%. We're big fans of coaching as well, with our team, as well as I know you are well aware of. And it's paid dividends. And I think that if you're going to get into real estate investing, there's so much education out there online, but that's fine. That gets you only so far. But having that coach that you can spitball ideas with and will help guide you is going to net you a much larger return in the long run. And so I guys, make sure you guys are looking into that. Honestly, if you're listening to this and you've been leery about it, just shoot us a DM and we'll put you in touch with some amazing coaches just like Tiffany here. And you actually are running a massive program right now that a lot of my clients have actually taken. Like, honestly, I've sent a lot of my clients to this group. Firstly, it's an online community that you guys have on Facebook. It's a pretty open community. You a lot of people can join it. So I want you to kind of take us through what is Fearless, and then kind of expand into the more deeper coaching program that you have with Ignited and what people are doing and learning from that.
Okay, so Fearless Real Estate Investors is a group on Facebook, and its initial concept was just basically because we were being DM'd constantly. And again, as we talked about, and as you know, Cam, as a busy investor and realtor and entrepreneur, you have to guard your time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we set up, we were getting DM'd constantly in Facebook, and quite honestly, it stressed me out beyond words, because if I couldn't answer people in a timely fashion, I wanted to put my head in the sand and never come out. So we created this Facebook group basically to say, hey, listen, if you have questions, just put it in the group. We'll answer it. Other people answer it. At least it's a group learning thing. Other people can learn from other people's questions. Mm-hmm. That morphed into 6,000 people now in that group.
Wow.
They're all investors. We check every single profile. We do not let them in. We have very strict rules, and we have 4 people moderating it every day, all day. So it's no spam, no, none of that kind of stuff. So it's just an education forum. We have a property management expert that goes live every Thursday. We have a mind power expert, Melanie Robinson, one of your clients, someone that you sent to us, who
That's
just
correct.
love. Yep. And she just loves you. And she does, so the mind power part, like the mindset kind of stuff that you have to wrap your head around as an investor. And then we do Tactical Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, we just do free content out there about any topic specific to investors that's happening at the time. So it's a free group. Anyone can join as long as you're giving and not just taking.
100%. No, I love it. And for those listening as well, we did have Melanie Robinson on this podcast. We did a series at the beginning of the pandemic called the Corona Chronicles. So she was on one of our guests. And again, we had her on because of that mindset thing. We were all going through some crazy situation with the pandemic that we didn't know was going to happen. And that's why we wanted to bring an expert like Melanie on with the mindset to make sure that we're keeping our mindset, in the right place as we're going through, because nobody knew what was going to happen in the early days. This is like, I brought her on, I think in like April or May, when we were still in the thick of staying at home. We were, not working, not going out for restaurants, anything like that. Times have definitely changed. And, things have really gone crazy in the real estate markets and things like that. But the Fearless group, it's something that obviously I put Melanie in touch with. And I've seen the exponential growth with Melanie. I remember at the time, and I hope she's okay with me telling the story, but I'm going to tell it anyways, because I think she's talked about it in the past. At the time,
she'll be fine.
She'll be totally fine. At the time, Melanie had said to me that she didn't know what she was going to do. We had done maybe 8 or 9 flips at this point together. And she was it was churning. We're doing great. We're making good profit for her. We're churning each point. At one point, we would have 3 on the go. So we'd have 1 on the market. We'd be renovating 1 and we'd be buying the next one, right? So it was becoming systemized. And it was in a hot market in 2016, 17 and into 18. And after the market slowed down and we weren't doing as many flips because we were being cautious with the market, she says, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing real estate. I don't really see the value. She's like, I see the money, but I don't see the value. And for someone like Melanie, she needs to see that she's providing value to people. So I
Yeah.
said, listen, she started going into all these different coaching programs, and I said, hey, my good friend Tiffany, she's got a program going out. I want you to go check it out. So she becomes a member. She starts diving deep into it. And what she realized, especially with raising capital, is that she's actually able to impact people's lives through joint ventures. It's not just about the money she was earning, to get from
Right.
people to buy more properties for herself. She now was able to put that in a capacity that says, I'm actually helping these people with their wealth or their families or whatever they're looking for the JV with. And so now she's at what, like 20 doors or something this year. Like she's absolutely killed it this year.
I think it's closer to 50
Oh,
now.
it's a 50 now. Geez.
Yeah.
Okay. Last time I talked to her, it was like, yeah, okay. So she's going crazy out there.
Yeah.
And a
But
big part of that's because of Fearless.
well, and thank you for trusting us with your beloved Melanie, because we love her too. But that's one thing that was one of those kind of mindset shifts that when I first started joint venturing, I felt extremely uncomfortable asking for money. I felt like I was, asking for a favor and begging and just, whatever, just being the loser that had no money. But the beauty of what we came around to and what we share with people is that what ended up happening is that we were able to help a lot of people to create their retirements, change their future, pay for their kids' educations, help their parents in those, retirement homes, all those things that we hope to be able to do, but maybe had no actual plan for doing it.
Yeah.
We were able to help our joint venture partners to do those things. And so, 10 years in, when we started paying out a lot of the partners and hearing how we had changed their lives, that was life-changing for me. Now I have no problem saying to people, hey, give me your money, because I'm going to make it grow for you, rather than,
exactly.
Do you think you could, are you interested? Would you be interested? Do you think? Or, it's a totally different mindset.
Absolutely.
When you can go in helping.
Absolutely. And I love that it's framed that way too, because I think that is the biggest fear that most people have with raising capital, is that they do feel like they're looking for a handout. Right. My first deals, I was 21. So, I mean, I didn't have money, let's be honest.
Right.
And I just finished begging my parents. So I guess my first JV was begging my parents to help put me through the Rich Dad education program, because at the time that was the big one. Right. And I think that was like $37,000 because I wanted to go for the big package. Right. So,
Yeah,
I mean, but it's your parents. Right. But after that, they're like, okay, we're tapped out because we put that money into your education. So same thing. I had to learn how to start raising capital. And my first partner was one of my supervisors at the pool that I worked at, and
see,
yeah,
they're everywhere.
100%.
But let me ask you, how did you end up partnering with them? Like, how did that go from being your boss to being your partner?
So, because I was taking all the real estate courses, I wouldn't shut up about it in the office. Right. So,
Right.
I'd be talking about it. I'd be like, oh, I'm looking at this property. Oh, and after 3 or 4 months, they ended up doing a flip in Edmonton. And it did not go as they planned, because they didn't know what they're doing, right? They had cost overruns. It took way too long. And I think they net just broke even on it, right? But because I kept talking about all the education I was taking, they said, hey, we have the money now unlocked from this property. We want to put it somewhere. Let us know. And so we ended up doing a rent to own deal, because I was focusing on rent to own at the time. And we bought a property. They put up the capital. We both went on the mortgage and set up the deal. And 3 years later, the tenant buyer bought us out. We cashed out, did very, very well on it. So
amazing. See, okay, so Cam, now when we talk about it, like that's step number one in finding a joint venture is planting those seeds, because there are all these people are around you, but sometimes we're shy about it, or maybe we've been naysayed about real estate, so we don't talk about it or whatever, or we feel like we're begging. But by just doing exactly what you did, exactly what we did, but we didn't realize it. It's like that's step number one, is you just plant these little seeds without being annoying, but you plant these little seeds all over the place. And you are going to find people that are curious and want to know more. And it's those people that become your partners.
100%. And the biggest realization too, for me early on, and I'm sure it was the same thing with you, is everyone I think thinks that you do need the people with the big money, right? The doctors, the lawyers, the accountants. And yes, those guys can make great JV partners as well, because they do make good money. They have the ability to qualify for mortgages. But it's also, like I said, mine was my supervisor at the pool and her husband who was in construction. They were able to pull the down payment off a line of credit because they've owned their home for several years and they had the money built up. I've had a joint venture partner who is just really busy in the film industry. And I'm sure you've had tons of different joint ventures with your regular jobs that most people wouldn't even think about as a JV partner, right?
Absolutely. And you know what, that first couple that invested in that very first property, We were 24, I think, and 25, and they were 26 and 27. So here we were looking around for like 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, they were our age, so people ask us, what does a joint venture partner look like? Well, what's the demographic of it? There really isn't one. They can come from anywhere. In fact, I'll just tell you another quick story. A waitress, we had someone in our boot camp, we were telling them, plant seeds, or no, it wasn't, it was actually pre-boot camp, but plant seeds, plant seeds, plant seeds. They were talking about it at a restaurant. The waitress overheard, started asking questions. At the end, she came over to them and said, hey, I just got an inheritance. I've got, I think it was $300,000 or $500,000. I don't know what to do with it. I need help. And so they got a partner through, a waitress. Yeah. And like, you never know where things are going to come from. So keep those seeds planted.
I love that you said that too, because we've had, I've been talking with another agent out here who's very heavy in the investing. And especially out here in Vancouver, where the inheritances, if someone's owned a house, it's going to be $1 million inheritance, right? Right. So we always have the conversation. If someone came to us and said, I've got $1 million inheritance, where should I put my money? Right? That's what we got to think about as investors. What can we do to help this person? You can obviously benefit as their partner, but what are we going to do to help this person invest their money, their inheritance properly? Because as you and I know, most people out there, if they get an inheritance of $1 million, it's buying the trucks and the toys and everything like that. But if they come to you and they say, I want to help, I want to grow this, you need to be ready to say, hey, I've got the opportunities to show you to help how to do that. And that goes whether you're an agent, whether you're an investor yourself. If you're out there, be prepared to be I don't want to say a financial advisor, but essentially in a lot of ways, you become someone who helps build someone's finances in a lot of ways.
Well, and I mean, it's a beautiful thing to be able to have that knowledge and power. I mean, I love, whatever things about health and organic stuff and whatever. I love being the go-to person for my friends and family if they need an herbal remedy or whatever. That's amazing to me. Yeah. But equally amazing is being able to, empower that kind of conversation. And that's a great thing to be an expert in.
I totally agree. And again, just going back to Fearless and Ignited, I want to talk a little bit about the Ignited program, because I think that that's where I've seen my clients really excel. Being part of Fearless is amazing. But again, it goes back to the coaching. You need to put up a little bit of money to really dive deep into this. So what take us through what Ignited truly is, like from, I know you can't give away all the secrets of it. I recommend you guys go and buy the program, join it, but tell us what Ignited is and why it's important for investors to take that next step if they want to level up and grow.
So Ignited is just a hands-on coaching program. So we're pretty high touch. And I think that's the difference. There's lots of like content. We've got lots of online content, and we could, tout hours and hours of learning. And, but really the difference is that when you hit those roadblocks, you actually have access to real live people that can help you work through them. Yeah. And within Ignited, we do like a weekly call where we're just laser focused on issues, obstacles, problems. How do we approach this motivated vendor? How do we structure this deal? How do we analyze this property? Is this a good one, a bad one? I'm looking at this market. Is that good? That sort of thing. But then there's the whole community around you that is, supportive of, contacts or financing each other's deals, like just, yeah, I just don't even know where to begin. It's just like the most amazing little community that you can imagine.
Yeah. And again, I will definitely vouch for that as a Fearless member myself. And, we do some work with your team and things like that. Every time I get tagged, I'm like, hey, here, I'm going to do what I can to answer the questions and help these investors out. Right. Because, the one thing I realize is that, this is an ever changing, ever evolving industry. And as investors, we can help each other stay forefront to what's changing and how to adapt to it, whether it's market shifts and strategies that need to change, or whether it's government changes that we need to be prepared for, whether it's new taxes or different bylaw changes in cities. That's where the community comes into play, because not only can we help each other raise money and do deals together, but we can also keep each other apprised on what's truly happening to protect the portfolio we've built. Because at the end of the day, building the portfolio is one thing, but then we need to protect it, and we need to make sure that it thrives, right?
Absolutely. And I always say getting into real estate is the easy part. It's the staying in, that's the hard part. And that's where you need a team. Like, and that, like with, that's why we'll scream it from the rooftops to send people to you guys, because we know that they're getting quality service, quality help, quality coaching. They can call you and, if there's an issue or a problem, you're going to deal with it. And that's really important. Like if you don't have a good team, you're not going to be around long. So no matter how well you do initially, you're not going to be around long. So having that team around you is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's always one of the fundamental things that's always taught, whether I was learning at the Rich Dad program or I'm sure you teaching it. You need to surround yourself with the investor focused team, because if you don't have an investor focused realtor, property manager, accountant, lawyers, that, if you're doing it on your own and you're just picking random people, you're not going to get the best advice, and you're likely going to be doing a one and done, maybe a two and done if you're lucky. And then you're going to say, that real estate thing didn't work for me. That you're not going to get rich doing that. I got burnt doing it. And everyone's got some friend's uncle's wife's cousin that got burnt by real estate, right? So
absolutely. And the sad part about that is that it's really time in real estate that really creates, and you've heard us probably rant about this before, we call it like the cash flow to wealth program. It's just, you've got cash flow and that's great and that's awesome. But really it's wealth that you're looking for. And that's only going to come when your mortgages are being paid down after years and years of your tenants paying them for you. Rents have now gone up, markets have, balanced, all those things, but that takes time. And so if you come into real estate, you spend a couple of years in it, you sell, you get a little chunk of change, maybe you pay for a holiday, whatever, that you're still working your 9 to 5. You're still, trapped in your pension that didn't exist or whatever it might be. So it's time in the market that really matters. And that's where your team comes in.
Absolutely. Because, if we really think about it from that perspective, especially in markets like where I am, we have a very strong market, but we don't have strong cash flow, right? We are, and clients will come and say, I want to retire off my cash flow. I'm like, how much do you need? 10 grand a month. I'm like, okay, we're looking at 10,000 properties then to get you to that point. Right? Because, you're going to either be break even on your cash flow or we do find cash flow deals, that we find it all the time, but it's going to be $100, $200, right? You go to markets like in Edmonton, you might find the $1,000 a month cash flow, but still, they're different styles, right? But how many of those $1,000 properties do you need to replace? That's 10 properties. So, at what point are you running out of qualifying? So I always say it's the same thing, it's a get wealthy slow, thing, unless you're a super active investor out there, which a lot of people are, and there are a lot of people doing it. But for the average person, you're buying it for that long-term portfolio, right? You're buying it for that 20-year retirement plan, right?
For sure. And I mean, if you go into your market and you try to time your market, or you come into, our market, and you try to time our market with oil being a commodity-based, market, you're not going to be winning every single time. So, is it good to have that diversity and have like some markets, like our market is flat. Edmonton's been flat for years now. We haven't gained. However, it's paying us every month. So that's okay. We don't care about the price because it's paying us every month. Whereas you guys are like, you buy a place and 6 months later, you can refinance it. And you're like freedom 55 in 6 months. So, there's good and bad to all markets, but it's that balance that you want to have so that you can, last in all of those ups and downs.
Totally. And I like that you said about the diversification, because I do find that some people put all their eggs in one market basket, right? So I think it is healthy to go and invest in. So I say there's two types of markets. There's appreciation markets like Vancouver is, right? And then there's cash flow markets that Alberta is. Cash flow, it's because again, it's flat, but you're getting the better cash flow. So if you're wanting to have that cash flow that's going to come in to help support your monthly lifestyle, go and invest a little bit in Alberta, buy a couple of properties that have, some good net cash flow coming in, but then make sure you put some of your eggs in an appreciation basket, because that's the long-term wealth too, right? So, because in BC, you're going to get limited cash flow, but you're getting the mortgage pay down. And, again, if it's averaging about 10% increase per year, that's where you're going to build some long-term wealth. So between the two of them, you've got one funding lifestyle today and one funding lifestyle tomorrow. You're equally diversified at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, look at your clients that they're Igniteds now, probably because you sent them to us. But they're, they've been your clients, flip clients. And I mean, the things that they can do and the product that they can push out and the numbers that they can gain there are just unreal. Like we could never come close to that. So there's beauty in every market. There's niches in every market. You just have to have the people. Again, that's why we send people to you that that know, okay, look, you're not gonna get that return here. You got to look over here and guide you, because you can't be an expert in everything. You need someone else that's going to help you figure these things out.
100%. I again totally agree with that, and I think you guys have done a phenomenal job with building that aspect, because I've seen so many of those programs that just push one market, and again, if we make sure that we're diversifying it and showing people the opportunities, they can have opportunities everywhere. And one big thing I always like to say, and it's it doesn't reign true for everyone. Some people have had experience elsewhere, but I would say if you can, start in your backyard. Right. That way you can touch, feel, go and see your property very, very easily. So for my clients, obviously I'm saying, let's go buy in the Fraser Valley. It's an hour drive max. You've got the capital. Let's do it. You're not going to be getting rich off this property monthly, but you'll get rich off of it later. Once you've got this property locked down, you've got the management aspect kind of dialed in. That's when you can start expanding into other markets, right? Going to I see a lot of people going out to East Coast right now. Going into property is like in Alberta. But again, being in your backyard, at least for your first investment or two, gives you the ability to be more hands-on. And I think every investor should be like that, just to really, truly understand the inner workings, right?
Yeah, they end up learning faster, better. They can be actually even more compassionate to property managers, that sort of thing. But and what we've seen in your case, for example, clients can go into your market, you'll take them out, they'll buy a property. Within a year, they can refinance it, they pull money out, they can buy a cash flowing property in Alberta from the property that they had bought in the Fraser Valley with you. So, that jump over, it pays, now it's 2 for 1, because the one down payment provided for both of those purchases and that diversity. So absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So many things, so many things you can
options. Honestly, that's the one thing about real estate, is that there's just so much opportunity in it, especially here in Canada, so again, tapping into the right people who are going to show you that, and that it's not a one size fits all, right? Everyone's individual situation is different. And again, going back to the coaching aspect, that's where having a coach is going to help you to identify what's your niche strategy that's going to get you to point A to point B that you want to go, right? And for some of our clients, it's flips. Some of our clients is just buying rental properties. Some of it's a pre-construct, whatever the case might be. Having that coach who understands and can help you mold your plan like you guys do is what's going to help you guys be benefited in the long run.
For sure. Well, thanks, Cam. I didn't realize you were such a fan.
Oh, of course I am. You should know that by now.
Well, I think it's neutral stuff.
Yeah, and I really love these conversations too, because the goal here is I hope you guys listening are going to get motivated and inspired today. Go and check out the Fearless page. Go join that if you guys are looking for a community that you guys want to tap into. But most importantly, just know that you and I started in a lot of the same ways, right? We started with joint ventures because we didn't have the capital. So if you guys are listening, especially, I love inspiring the young people. If you're in your 20s, I was 21, guys. If you were in your 20s, there's nothing stopping you from getting in the market, just your mind.
Yes, we are, we hear that we're biggest enemy, blah, 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 blah. No, but we really are, because now, so I'm only 44, but I look back at 21-year-olds. And if I saw a kid like you at 21, who's just on fire with wanting to do this and this and go, I would have been like, heck yeah, I'm all in, because I know you're going to go somewhere. And I can see that as a 44-year-old. At 21, I thought I'm just useless. As a 44-year-old, I see fire and drive and ambition and time and energy. And I'm like, heck yeah, I'm going to just invest in that, because I don't have that anymore like I used to. So yeah.
Love it.
Awesome.
Well, again, I do appreciate you coming on the podcast. And I appreciate your time, because I know you are busy out there. So I want to kind of start wrapping up. There's one thing that I like to do with all of my guests. And I'm pretty sure I probably know the book that you're going to recommend, but I always ask for a book recommendation. What's the one book that you would recommend to somebody that if they're listening to this podcast and they want to start taking action out there, what would you say that they should pick up and read as that one book to get them inspired?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say anything but Rich Dad Poor Dad, just because it's changed so many lives, including my own. For sure, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have probably heard it. I've had some great book recommendations, but that's the one that comes up the most. So if you haven't already read it and you've been listening to this podcast now since, the summer, you should know that it's time to pick up that book and listen to it or read it, whatever the case might be. I'm a big fan of Audible, as you guys know. This is not sponsored, but, go out there and start looking at properties, do some drive-bys, look at things, listen to the book while you're doing it, right?
100%. I'm a big fan of it too. Even if I'm not for sure paying attention, 100% attention, I feel like my mind absorbs even when I don't even realize it's absorbing. And yeah, why not?
Absolutely. Well, Tiffany, again, I appreciate you so much spending your time with me here this afternoon and talking with our audience here. Again, guys, go check out the best way that they can access you is through the Fearless page. So that's facebook.com/fearless, I guess, or
I think it's .com/groups/fearless investors.
There we go. Okay, so go and check it out. I'm also going to put a link in the description, guys, below. So after you're done listening it, you can go click that link, go join the Fearless page, and start building up your portfolio and start building your real estate adventure. So, Tiffany, thank you so much again. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Anytime.